on fire at that point.
It's funny, we've never talked about this before, but I've got a very similar routine. In bed about 10:30, sleep till 7, unless I'm working out. Sometimes I work out a.m. way early, 5:45. Get up, do yoga every morning, 7 days a week. I've done it for the last 15 years, and I have not missed a day except for one time I was out of the country. It was like an international thing, and I had to skip over a day when I was flying. After that, I read for an hour. You're talking 9 or 10 o'clock before I actually start my workday. And some people don't understand that, but it makes me a whole lot more productive. If I've done the pre-planning, the sharpening the sword the night before, then I know exactly what to do. Just follow it down the list.
Yeah, and that's the real idea there. If you are that intentional about your time and you know that, let's say, your morning routine is going to take you 3 or 4 hours, then you know your workday, regardless of when you begin the day, you only have, let's say, an 8-hour workday planned. That time can be more efficient. You can cut out the things you're wasting your time on, and you can really get to the work that matters first. This goes back to the concept of what I applied in my life, which is the one thing. It's a book by Gary Keller. This whole concept comes in to where you are really saying, there is one thing in my day that matters. Nothing else is as important as this one thing. Gary recommends you actually schedule that activity the first thing you do in the day after your morning workout, which is the same concept here. It's that's when your brain is sharpest, when your energy is there. And when you do that, and that hard thing, and Brian Tracy says, eat that frog. The same idea, this hard thing. And when it's done, the rest of your day is that much easier.
Well, do the worst. I think that's what Brian Tracy meant. But you're also saying do the task that is the most mental. What's the word for it?
Probably mentally tasking.
That's the most mentally tasking. I know this as a marketer. You know, the reason we have infomercials on at night is not just because of the cheap TV time. It's also because we can't make decisions as well at night. And that ShamWow seems like a good idea because all your decision-making has been spent for the day. You've got to rejuvenate.
Yeah, I'm listening to a book right now called The Willpower Instinct, which is a really popular book. And it talks about that whole idea that your willpower is a renewable resource. You can get it back, but it only comes back after you've slept. And so by the end of the day, your discipline and your desire to kind of do the hard work is basically gone. So the average person who's going to work out does it before work. The person who's going to do the hardest work of their day is going to do it early in the day. Because by the end of the day, you're drained, you have less energy, it's easier to be sold to. Like you mentioned that there, it's easier for you to make mistakes, to be careless. And so that's why this focus on the morning is so critical. And you can schedule tasks later in the day that are less important, like do the dishes late at night. It doesn't require a lot of mental strain. It's still important, and you do it at some point, but schedule the things that really matter early in the day and make sure that when you're awake and ready to kick butt, you're doing that, and that is intentional.
When people think about willpower, they often think about food. So let's talk about food. You have a diet sort of similar to mine. You're vegan, and a lot of your food is raw. Not a flame is lit, an oven is turned on, completely raw. Explain your diet and why you have chosen this.
Essentially, I went through a phase back in my mid-20s where I realized that I wasn't being intentional about my food. I was eating whatever I wanted, and that wasn't working for me. And so I had this kind of epiphany, and I read some books and saw some documentaries and decided that cutting out meat would be a good choice. And so I tried that, and it worked well. And then I read I should eat more fruits and vegetables and have raw food be the focus around that. So don't cook your food, just eat it as it comes from nature.
And explain why that is.
Essentially, when you cook food, it can denature the food. It can destroy the nutrients that come from the food that's designed to be optimized with your body. Your body will actually respond negatively to the cooked food like it would to an illness or to a bacteria.
It changes the structure of it.
Yeah.
Breaks a lot of things down, and it's not necessarily bad, but it's better to have it in a raw form.
Yeah, so the optimal way to eat an apple would be just pull off a tree and eat it. If you were to bake the apple or cover it in sugar, you're changing how the apple is designed to be eaten and the way that your body responds most naturally to it. And so I know from experience now that if I have a morning smoothie that's just bananas and water, and that's all that's in the smoothie, like a dozen bananas and water, it's a huge smoothie, big Vitamix blender. When I consume that, I have no side effects. My body does not freak out. I don't have indigestion. I don't get headaches. I don't feel bad. In fact, it's the opposite. I feel totally normal and energized. And that's when I know food that I'm consuming is working because it feels good going in. It feels good all the way through. Like it's such a simplistic but powerful way to eat your food. The food is responding in your body the way that you would think it would, and you feel good eating it. It's generally a sign that it's actually good for you.
I'm not vegan, but I've been vegetarian since 1998. I've got this thing on lock at this point. I'm never going to eat meat again. However, coming off the holidays, a lot of people are sending me things like fudge, cookies, candies. And that's really where I notice the difference in my life. It's not that I feel great, because great is just the normal for me. It's when I go out and it's like, yeah, I'll eat that pizza. It really affects me a lot more than I would have ever imagined it would have. I was so immune to the bad food I was eating. We talk about sleep. I was so immune when I wasn't sleeping as much, when I was working in the music business, get to the club at 3 a.m., stay out till 7 a.m. I just thought that was normal. And I think a lot of people get caught up in that.
It's really easy to think that what you're doing is normal and that's the way you should be living. But it is fascinating that when you make habit changes and then you consume something that's bad, like, I had a pizza over the holiday break recently and it terrorized me. I mean, it was just the worst reaction I could imagine.
We're talking real cheese, not the vegan cheese.
This was vegan cheese, actually.
Oh.
And I don't even have processed vegan cheese that often. So when I had this, it was just this, Oh my goodness, what did I do? Moaning and groaning on the couch for hours, just really bad. So, but that's what happens when your body says, whoa, this is not the norm. This is not what I want. This is not the food that's best for me. And your body tells you that. Just listen.
I think it's very similar to people that are in chaotic relationships. You've got a chaotic family situation. Your spouse is nuts. You've got chaotic friends. You don't realize how good things can be when you get that together.
Oh, yeah. I remember back when I was, eating really, I would say standard American food, I thought it was normal. I thought the indigestion that I had was normal. I thought taking drugs from a doctor was normal. But in the last 18 months, I've been using a Vitamix blender for my smoothies every morning. And in the last 18 months, I've had 0 sick days from work.
Right.
Prior to that, I had probably 5 or 6 a year. And so what's changed is that the consumption of the healthier foods causes me to feel better, and my body responds the way it should.
Well, let's talk about work, because these days you're self-employed, 100% self-employed, and you love your work.
Yes.
So how has that affected how much you're able to get done?
It's remarkable. It's one of those that as soon as you have time available to get more done, my initial reaction was to go crazy. So I wasn't sleeping in the first couple of weeks because I was so excited about having a lot of time available. Right, and I just went nuts, and I was doing lots of stuff. And then I realized, okay, that's overkill. So I backed up a little bit. And now it's much more structured, much more methodical process in the day. So I have boundaries set. 8 p.m., I stop all work for the day no matter what. 5 a.m., I'm up and I'm going. I have these very strict boundaries around my time so I can get the most out of my time. And I cut cable TV out of my life. So I've got these things that used to be distractions aren't there anymore. Yeah. So I really can just get right to my work, stay focused on the next most important task, turn off my phone almost all day long. The phone's turned off because I don't even need it. And when it is on, it's a distraction to me. Whatever I can do to focus more, I'm implementing those strategies all the time. And every day I discover new ways to refine the system and tweak it and make it better. And it does cause me to be much more productive.
Well, you hit on something that we haven't talked about, but I think just eliminating Facebook, cable TV, all the stuff that we kind of take for granted as part of everyday life, turning off your mobile phone, that's huge. No text messages or having a specific time that you've scheduled those in. Email is a big one. That's going to increase your productivity probably tenfold.
And it's really scary at first, too. I remember the first day that I turned off my email program on my computer because normally I had it open and it would ding every time an email came in. And I looked forward to that. My brain was conditioned to expect
Pavlov's dog, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And as soon as that ding would happen, I'm like, ooh, good, a new email. It could have been spam. I didn't care. I was excited about the email. And so those first few days that I turned that off, I was like, oh my gosh. What if I have an email? What if? And that kind of anxiety behind this, nonsensical communication, that's how I felt. But after a while, I was able to say, well, wait, now I have the focus and the mental space to do the work that matters. And then I would get something really important done and look at the last hour and say, wow, there was no phone call, no email, no Facebook. I got the work done I cared about. I feel great. And no one died in the process. Nothing bad happened.
The world went on.
Yes.
It was just fine without Facebook, without Instagram, without seeing how many likes you got, Twitter.
Yeah, I went on a vacation a few months ago with my family, and we went backpacking for 3 days in the mountains. And for those 3 days, I had no cell service. I had my phone with me, though, just in case I would have service, in case I could look at Facebook. But I didn't have it. And for 3 days, I was checking my phone. Where's Facebook? Where's the internet? By the end of the trip, though, by the end of those 3 or 4 days, I didn't care anymore. And then I got back home, and I looked at my phone, and I was like, I didn't miss anything. Nothing really crazy happened. It wasn't a big deal.
Right.
It's okay to unplug, not only let's say on an annual basis to go on vacation, but it's okay to unplug every single day for certain time periods to do the things that matter most.
So you've got a podcast, 5 a.m. Miracle. Talk about it.
The podcast I started about a year and a half ago, based on what happened in my life, was that I was waking up early, I was getting more done, I was excited about it, And I'd always wanted to be a podcaster. I always wanted to have my own show. I realized this was a great topic because 5 a.m. is an anchor habit. My anchor habit, I mean, it's the first thing you do in your day that leads to other positive changes. It leads to exercise. It leads to reading in the morning or meditation or yoga. And so I wanted to use that as the foundation to discuss all of these great personal development strategies that I love, productivity strategies, health and wellness strategies. And that's what the podcast has become. It's a forum for me to discuss all these great strategies, to share those with all my listeners. And it really is a wonderful thing to be able to do because all of us are experiencing the same struggles. We all have the same problems, and we really just need some helpful tips and strategies to navigate all that craziness. And that's the real goal of the podcast.
JeffSanders.com is the website. You've got a daily rituals template. So what we're talking about, if you want to put that into your life, you've got a template, man. How much easier does it get?
That's right.
Go to JeffSanders.com. You can get that. You can check out 5 a.m. Miracle. Every week you're on there, not only with your advice, but you're interviewing people that are also into productivity, into getting more done. And that's what Laurel and I do. We're business optimizers. If you want to do that with your life, listen to Jeff Sanders. He knows what he's talking about. JeffSanders.com. Thanks for listening. If you have questions or comments, reach out to us online. redpodcast.com is where to do that. You can get in touch with me, get in touch with Laurel. You can also ask us questions, suggest episodes. And if you're listening on iTunes, we'd appreciate a review. When you do that, we come up more frequently in the iTunes search engines. When that happens, we build the real entrepreneur development community. Everything gets bigger and everybody succeeds. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, Real Entrepreneur Development. Subscribe today using iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.